Good morning, everybody. Great to see everybody. Just quickly, I do want to say, unfortunately, I do have an appointment that overlaps today. So if I do have to leave early, I'd like to just take a quick vote if I'd like Anne just to chair the meeting if I need to leave, but just this time only. There's no decisions on the agenda that the mayor needs to be in for. So could I have a quick vote that Anne can chair the meeting if I need to leave early?
I need to leave. Anything you need to leave?
12.
Well, I think we've been up by that ship.
Yeah, just in case. So you know, it can go one, can't it? So right, okay. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, received apologies from Councillor Dad and Councillor Tockett is here substituting.
Right, thank you. Declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare any interest in relation to business on the agenda of the meeting? No. Well. Minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of July. Would anyone like to move and second the minutes? The last meeting, please.
I move them, Mayor.
Well, thank you. Announcements from the mayor. It's all in the agenda today, so we'll skip past that and we'll go through it in the agenda. Public questions. We have received some questions.
Would you like me to move
Oh,
the questions out?
Yes, please, if you don't mind. Thank you.
First question is from Mr. Ostler. I am a member of the Hull Civic Society and also a board member. Our remit is to preserve the heritage of the city and influence improvement and raise awareness of the city heritage and that of the East Riding also. Primarily though, it is the city we are looking at discussing and objecting if required to some planning applications. We also take part on promote the Heritage Open Days which take place in September every year, giving people the chance to look at some of our fine heritage and go behind the scenes. We also have a presence with the CAAC committee. I'd like to establish some kind of link with the board so we can relay information as to what is happening around the area as we go through the year. The city keep our members informed of what is going on. We intend to pursue further matters from the council in regards to the bridge network of the city though. What we have gathered so far is encouraging. Although we have a raft of questions, I would like to start off with just two. If we were to look at the Bedford to York rail link, are we being realistic that this will happen? We know that Mr. Graham Stewart has been championing this for a while now. I ask because it is possible that funding from HACA may be available in the future for it. And his second question is, for the city, are there future plans for modification of the South Kirks Lane and Marthwaite Lane roundabout junctions, as these are now causing long tailbacks during the day and at certain times of the day? The road service of Marthwaite Lane especially needs renewing and the lane discipline is poor. Perhaps a junction box may be a start to alleviate congestion.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to pick that up as portfolio holder for transport. Regarding the first question around the Beverley to York, what I can say is, you know, there have been many feasibility studies done in the past. Nothing's off the table. We're aware that the local MP Graham Stewart is very keen on this. What I will say is, you know, it will be explored and looked at in the future through feasibility studies and costings. But that's as far as we've got with that at the moment. But regarding the second item, I will explore that and I will feedback. You're welcome. Thank you.
I think it's like $250 million the costings for that rail. So I think there's a lot to take into consideration.
For you, Mr. Mayor, the difficulty with the railway is that most of the railway line has now been built on. So they would have to reroute the whole line, and that would be extremely expensive. However, going back to Alexa's question, we're not saying that, you know, we won't look at this. We will look at this, but it'll all be down to costings and feasibility and where it can happen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And the question, the second question also the made available was the council on both council for
Yes.
And I'll feed it through you, Matt. I will feed in with the counterparts in Hull and we'll get a response from that.
We have another question, Mayor, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's a question from Mr. Brayford. Before the election, you said your second of three top priorities was to fix the bus network. You claim that fares are going up, routes are being cut and timetables are going down. and said, I think it's time for us to take back control now. Control the fares, control the bus routes and the quality of service. Reportedly looking at what work done in Greater Manchester, where the B network, an integrated public transport network, has been established, bringing all buses under public control. Your electorate got the impression that you would take steps to start bringing the buses across Hull and East Yorkshire back under public control. Last year, the West Yorkshire Mayor brought buses back under local control, and the North East Mayor confirmed on their first day in office that they have instructed officers to start the process. This year, the South Yorkshire Mayor also started the process of bringing buses into their region back under public control. You'll be aware of the people living in primarily rural areas where poor bus services mean that residents have difficulty accessing employment opportunities that arise in urban areas, especially if they do have access to their own vehicles. You'll be aware that an excellent and well-used public transport network will have a significant effect on residents' quality of life and health outcomes, as well as a stronger local economy and improved environmental sustainability. In the papers for the September 2025 HACA Executive Board, we've seen an agenda item, notification of intent, exploration of a combined enhanced bus partnership agreement. Reading that report, I do not perceive that it meets your previously expressed intention of taking back control, aiming for a weaker outcome than those peers in other regions are aiming for. Why is that?
Well, thank you for your question. It's a hell of a question, but thank you for that. It is exactly right. That's a long-term vision to bring it under control. We've currently got one member in the office that's working on transport. We do need to grow that team to be able to commit to them that vision. But what can we do now that can help travellers and be more connected? Well, what we can do is we can create an integrated bus ticket that can work across the whole region. We can try and bring fares down for 18s and under and for over 60s. So that's what we can do now, and that's the action for now. But the long-term vision is to bring it under our control, give the people better routes, cheap fares. That's exactly what we want, and we are working towards that. So thank you for your question. We are working with Councillor Tuckett's his portfolio on transport. So we're building that relationship there. Is there anything you'd like to add on that?
The only thing I'd add, Mayor, for you is that there's an agenda item today which is about consultation around bus service improvement plan, and we're very keen because we acknowledge the current system probably isn't fit for practice, because some journeys can take you 7 hours there and back from Beverley to some remote areas. So we're very keen to move this forward, as the Mayor said, and that work has started, and it started 3 months ago,
Yeah.
and today is the next big step.
And exactly right. We are building a team to be able to deliver this, but also I just want to add in there as well. It's not just better connectivity and cheaper fares. It's also the safety. What I'd also like to look at on the bus routes. I want women and girls to feel safe travelling on the public transport at night as well. So I'd love to be working with Jonathan on this to see if we can do something there on the safety of travel, public travel for women and children. So yeah. Thank you for the question. Moving on to item 6, I will hand it over to Julian, but I'd like to appoint interim chief exec. Julian.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a report of the interim monitoring officer who is not present at the meeting, so I'm going to pick this one up. So currently, Mark Rogers is the interim head of paid service and chief executive of Combined Authority. Mr. Rogers has given his notice and will resign from his position today. The Combined Authority has a legal duty to have in place a head of paid service. So pending appointment of a permanent chief executive, it will be expedient to continue to designate head of paid service on an interim basis. Alan Menzies is currently the interim chief executive of East Riding Yorkshire Council, and the council has indicated a willingness to provide armed services to the Combined Authority on a part-time basis as head of paid service and chief executive until his retirement from the council on 4th of November 2025. And in anticipation of the board's approval, handover has been provided from Mark Rogers to Alan Menzies. So by moving to the recommendation, it is recommended that the executive board approves the designation of Alan Menzies as interim head of paid service of the combined authority with immediate effect.
I think to read that, the reason set out makes sense in circumstances. Also got on record, thanks to Mark Rogers for his work over the previous several months in the authority has money. And thank him, and wish him well for the future.
Thanks, Mike. All good?
So do you want us to vote on that?
Yeah, should do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Karen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on, item 7. Julie,
Nothing to do with the monitoring office.
monitoring officer, item 7.
So
Julie, you coming again?
Similarly, I'm going to pick up this item for appointment of an interim monitoring officer. So Jane LeBrewer is currently designated interim monitoring officer. She has provided notice and will resign from her position today. Again, the authority has a legal duty to designate one of their officers as the monitoring officer. Tony Maoni is a solicitor specialising in commercial law who has previous experience as monitoring officer gained at North East Lincolnshire Council, and is currently employed by the authority on a part-time basis as a local commercial contract solicitor since the 5th of August. So Tony is a suitably qualified individual to hold the post of interim monitoring officer and is available to start immediately working 2 days per week for the combined authority. So in anticipation of the board's approval, handover has been provided from Jamie Bird to Tony. And if I move you to a recommendation, therefore, it is recommended that the executive board approves the designation of Tony Mayo as interim monitoring officer for the combined authority with immediate effect.
I'm happy to move that.
Well, thank you.
Just second that again, we'll record in minutes. I'll thanks to Jane for the work she's done.
Brilliant. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8, reports from any of the committees and combined authority. There's no item, there's no items on this one. We're moving on to item number 9. We have the game plan consultation. Firstly, I'd like just a couple of words to say on this. After I was elected, I set out my priorities. Everything that we do in the combined authority is to put the people of our region first. And I hope this shows in the game plan what we've got set out. Better jobs, more skilled jobs, upskilling the workforce, better connectivity and bringing in that investment, health in all policies, getting our region healthier and more active, setting out some fun challenges there. Steve, I'll hand it up to you to deliver the game plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For those I've not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Steve Skelton. I'm an advisor to the Combined Authority and have been working on this with colleagues across the region and within the Combined Authority for the last couple of months. I guess I'll just make a few comments to help sort of frame the report and help you sort of digest it. So as the Mayor's already said, a key purpose of this is to dovetail a lot of what we already knew in terms of commitments made in the devolution deal, requirements in the sort of the supporting legislation with the Mayor's priorities that he set out after the election. And so you'll notice that the structure report follows those mayoral priorities and is also aligned to the portfolio arrangements that were adopted by this board just before summer. I guess the second thing to say is clearly we are still pretty early on in the formation of the combined authority. And so we had a decision to take as to whether we made an early statement of what we thought we were prioritising and the actions that we could take, or whether we waited until structures were formed, we had perhaps more certainty around the size and scale of the organisation and therefore what we could achieve, and then set out a more detailed plan later. And we've gone for the former, I just think, because it's important to create momentum. It's important to show people that we are standing behind some of the early commitments and that there's a collective ownership of those priorities across this board. Naturally, that means the plan will evolve. So it will iterate. We're putting this forward now for consultation. We'll hear good ideas back. We'd like to know what people are doing, which aligns. with this priority framework. We'll try and build that in as well. And then as the organisation builds and has more confidence and hopefully secures more resources, then we'll keep the framework updated. So expect to kind of see this evolve as a really document rather than just a once and done sort of strategic plan. A couple of final comments. It has had the benefit of input from a wide range of people. We held before the summer a policy sprint over 3 days, which was really well attended, actually in this very room, with the support of the University of Hull and the 2 local authorities in particular. We had representation from across the public services, private sector reps, voluntary and third sector representatives, and we did a big sort of download of their thoughts and ideas, and a lot of that was fed into the work you see in front of you. It's then been shared across lead officers for each of the portfolios. It's had the benefit of input from portfolio holders and from the PCC's office, which based on which we've added some extra commitments around working with the Police and Crime Commissioner. As I said before, we're bringing it here to ask for your endorsement that we can take forward to further consultation, update it and bring it back in the new year for agreement. And once that's done, it provides basically an overarching plan that everything else would hang off. So there's lots of other work to do, but this is our first kind of statement of intent. I have to take any questions or.
Brilliant, thank you, Steve. Questions?
Yeah, not necessarily questions, just perhaps things to think about. Regarding, and I think I quote this, it's the affordable homes part, page 50 onwards. Affordable homes in servant neighbourhoods where people are proud to live. I mean, there's some things I can help with that, obviously, but I think it's important that in the outcome framework, we actually define safety and what pride is, and what I see, where you're going. It's just food for thought, really. And of course, I can give you lots of data as far as safety and safer neighbourhoods, so we can find a sort of level. So there's no real question there. And the other thing is I happen to have somebody that was very senior in the authority, the LEP, and he just mentioned to me that actually the remit of births of businesses is not really a terribly good indicator of growth in itself. You really need to know survival and growth weights of businesses, and within the Freeport, it's more likely that there'll be established businesses that you will be working with rather than really small and startup businesses. And just one final thing is the outcomes that you're considering within this document. Are they across the whole combined authority, or are they to a lower level? Because if you're just looking at the whole combined authority, it's quite possible that you will see improvements, but you won't get the granular detail if you're not looking down in the dirt, and you could very easily, even though there's growth, leave communities behind as a result of a more high level look at it rather than a lower level look at it. So no real questions, just things of note, really.
Sorry, Jane.
My question, so it's great to see this actually and see it all together. It's really quite inspiring, isn't it? Mine's more a comment because everything is interconnected, I think, that is on here. And when you see things and they're in boxes, it's quite easy to work in your thing and not really pick up where those interconnections are. So for skills and work, for example, and housing and transport, they're directly interconnected. So just making sure that we get that cross look at things and make sure we don't miss things that would make a big difference because of that.
Yeah.
I can, but actually, James actually picked up on what I was going to say. Really, I mean, the way I see this is it is a strategy. It's an overarching strategy that's driven by 5 drivers, and I think that picks up on the bit that the PCC was saying. And it's those drivers that will feed in locally, so on the grander scale and the major scale, what's happening particularly in rural areas within the city hall. So I think it feeds in really well.
Sorry, Mike. One.
Thank you. So I welcome the development of this. I think there's clearly decide out there in other sectors and other partners and so on to understand where the combined authority is going to go, what the ambitions, what their priorities are, and this is about setting that out. I guess obviously the next step is around consultation on this with a range of partners. I know there's been some thought around what that should look like, so it'd be helpful to just outline at this stage and proposals around that. So I think sort of being able to go out there and say, this is the direction of travel will be helpful for them. And then be able to work alongside them on delivering it as well. That's the other big part of them.
Yeah, I can do that. Shall I take the questions as a whole and come to that one as well? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think to start with the PCC's comments on the outcomes framework, they're really helpful. I think the outcomes framework's one of the bits that will evolve the most over the iteration, into the next iteration. And I recognise all those points from some previous similar work. I hope we can mature it to that point where it is looking at differences between places as well as the regional average. And absolutely key to hear feedback on the getting the right indicator and the right measures. So we've keep talking about that. I absolutely agree on the point about interconnectedness, and it's kind of referred to here, but I don't think you can stop making the point. I think it's always about having enough structure to help people quickly work and get on with it, but without allowing that to become a channel that doesn't talk to other parts of the combined authorities work. So that's an important point to keep remaking here. And on Councillor Ross's point about consultation, so the mechanics of that, I guess, we have we promised to reconvene the sort of the cross-sector group that we created for the sprints, which we'll do, I think, in early November when we've got the benefit of some work on the growth plan as well. We can talk about them both. We are planning to attend sort of the existing standing committees, the formal committees for the Business Board and the Skills Board, but also our partners in, say, the Humber Energy Board and Freeport and elsewhere. And then we have a piece of work which we started before the summer that we need to conclude with the councils to look at how we use their networks into communities and with existing sort of consultation groups in order to get to some of those conversations that we won't get at the kind of the regional level. So it's a stakeholder consultation rather than, I guess, a public consultation would be a crucial distinction, partly because it benefits from some of the input that was done with some of the public input to the devolution consultation itself, but also, frankly, because it builds on a lot of things that have to happen anyway, and we don't spend a lot of time asking people what us to do things that we've got to do anyway. So, I think in that way we should be able to get to the kind of the regional strategic conversations, specific policy conversations, and those more localized discussions that the councils can help us with. I probably should say as well, and I know this kind of goes without saying, but it is a genuine consultation. So if this looks reasonably different when you see it again, that's a good thing.
I kind of want it to.
Yeah.
I think this is just one small piece of the puzzle, what we all need to piece together. So Jeff.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous to see the document. I think it'll probably come out in the consultation with the business board, but I see a key section missing from the investment side is the growth of existing business. So there's a lot about attracting inward investment, which is absolutely critical. However, we need to also concentrate with the growth hub, etc., on growing the businesses we have, particularly in relation to supply chains. So if we get the likes of Siemens, Gould, Railway Village, growing that supply chain, helping those existing businesses to take advantage of those opportunities. But I'm sure it'll come out, Steve, in the consultation exercise. But that was just the key part that I thought was.
Yes, I agree. I welcome that. Yeah.
Thank you all for your feedback. Can we all confirm the paper today?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Right. Thank you, Steve. Moving on to item 10, the Mayor's Community Investment Fund. I'll speak a little bit about this myself. We are still currently working on putting some smaller boundaries in place on how the investment fund is going to work. It did go through scrutiny last week, and happily everybody agreed on the benefit what this could bring to our local communities. I'll take any questions on the community. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very supportive of this. I was supportive as the last paper, as you know. I have significant grant portfolios community safety rather than the more general stuff. But I'm also very aware of how difficult it is to shift money. If your target is by the end of March to shift £1 million is quite a big ask. I'd like to be helpful in respect of that. We get lots of applications for funding, and to be kind, sometimes people aren't not scrutinise the grounds, shall we say, of what funding they can apply from me from a public safety perspective. So we have a lot of fall away as a result of that. I would quite happily, if it helps, send you some of those applications that we get, which we cannot fund because we're not in that business of doing, just to give you a head start if it's useful. But we did find it very, very difficult in the first days to actually start shifting the money.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm more than happy to work with you. The community fund is all about making our communities and neighbourhoods a better place. I want to give the people of this region an opportunity, not to be more easy and accessible, not to be an expert in writing bids to get grants, but we can back ideas that can better communities as well as actual charities and working with people to make communities a better place, you know, youth centres, everything like that. We've got some fantastic meetings booked in the next couple of weeks where we can work alongside other organisations to be able to help deliver in our communities as well. But what I'll do now is I'll go to Mike and then we'll go to Alan.
So just a couple of things, like the principal community funding is good, understand, it's private. I guess what is a bit clear from the paper in terms of what was out there public beforehand, in terms of how it's meant to work, in terms of being essentially sort of BCS funding stream rather than directly to sort of individuals, which I think is good to have that sort of clarity around it. And I think the point around that I would say is that there needs to be more communication out there from the public around exactly how it's going to work. And I appreciate there'll be a bit of time to work out some detail now. That'd be good to get that detail out to the public as soon as possible. The second point around it is just given that it is sort of largely aimed at BCS organisations, discussions with those existing BCS in the region around aligning it with what they're doing as well, so it's not duplication of effort, but overlaps and align with what's going on already as well. In my view, be useful.
Yeah, like you say, we've launched a website where we can collect surveys and people's ideas and stuff like that. We've had over 700 applications that's been put in for ideas and things to do where people feel like if we put money in a certain area, it will make their community, their neighbourhood a better place. Especially a lot of the interest was coming up was obviously for kids and youths getting into sports, youth clubs. Transport and accessibility was another massive thing as well. Playgrounds, safe spaces, more things to be able to be accessible for kids with disabilities. So there's a whole range of things that I'm excited to get stuck into where we can help and deliver as an organisation. But I'll pass you over to Alan now, and Alan can.
Thank you, Ned. So the main purpose of this report is to set out for you some of the headline principles around how the Community Investment Fund is going to be developed, how it's going to be operated, and the type of priority areas that the Mayor is keen to invest in. The point that Councillor Ross made is covered in 1.3 on the first page. This is about working with other partners. It's not about creating something which is totally separate and different. It's about getting better value out of lots of the very healthy activity that takes place already. If I can, these principles are set out around paragraph 3.11 on the third page of the report. It just sort of sets out at a headline level how this fund is likely to work in practice. If you're content to move this forward, the next stage of this is to produce a detailed business case, which sets out clearly how is this actually going to work, how are bids going to be submitted, how are they going to be appraised, what's the point scoring process, etc. And all of that has to satisfy our assurance framework in terms of handling and dealing with public funds. So that's a key part of that process. Aside of that, there's a need for a marketing and promotion plan around this as well, because the mayor's very keen to access disadvantaged groups and deprived groups, and those groups and individuals are very difficult sometimes to get to. So we do need a sophisticated marketing process and procedure, and also to use local partners that are out there on the ground doing lots of sterling work, so that the mayor's content that money is getting to the right people with the right needs. So if I can just take you back to the recommendations, we're asking you to note the principle of the creation of community investment funds. We're asking you to consider the contents of the report, and that's on the basis that you will get a further report which covers the detailed business case and how this is going to be structured, and also the marketing and promotion arrangements.
Thank you.
I think that business case is key. It's like, I don't know, I'm not sort of disagreeing with what we're saying there, but it's like that detail is going to be really important for people who both want to apply for it, or and it's great to have so many ideas in, but likewise, we don't want to give the impression of it's going to potentially be able to use the way it's not going to be able to use it. At least that people when there's something ideas about.
Well, I think the labels on the tin is for a community to make their place better place, neighbourhoods better place. So obviously there's boundaries within that, but obviously within the case of you're right, like we'll outline them boundaries and what it would be. But our key focus is to try and keep it as simple and as easy to access as possible. We don't want to make it difficult for people to apply for it. So
Excuse
Go-
me, can I just say something?
of course, Sam, please.
All I want to do is, I just think it's fantastic that not everybody can write bids. It's a specialism to write a bid. It's hard, it's
Yep.
tough. And you think you've done it, and you think you've hit all the points. And if you're not using the words, the buzzwords, you don't get through. So to make this really simple, I commend you for doing that, because there are so many groups out there. And as Mr. Menzies said, they're hard to reach and difficult to get in touch with, and they open a bid, they take look at the first page and they shut it.
Yeah.
So to do this, I just really think it's great, and thank you for bringing this investment fund.
Thank you for your support. And just going off that, it's ideas as well, what people want to submit. They have no interest, they'll gain about it, but they have an idea how to make their community better. We'll back stuff like that. Yes,
Yeah,
Jonathan.
just wanted to continue the sort of thought that Anne's been doing. We actually had to have seminars to help people write the bids, so it's useful to do that.
Good. Yes.
Sorry, can I just ask, given the groups that you want to identify in the ideas, the promotion of it will be really important, because, for a lot of them, there is different pockets and monies that are available, but they can't access them. So it's like, what will the promotion be of this fund? Because that will be absolutely crucial. Otherwise, there will be the usual suspect that will get involved.
No, thank you for bringing that to me, but yeah, we'll outline that in the business. So thank you. Is the board content to approve?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Moving on to item 11, the financial position, 2024-2025 budget outlook. I will hand over to Julie to take this report.
Thank you, Mayor. So this report sets out the provisional outturn for the previous financial year. Just to remind everyone, the authority only existed for the last final 2 months of that financial year. And the financial outlook for the current financial year. This is the first comprehensive financial update that I brought to the board since the provisional budgets were set by the inaugural meeting of the board on March 2025. So if we first have a look at 24-25, I've set out the revenue budget and outturn position at the top of page 76. The most significant item of expenditure for 24-25 is the cost of service level agreements with the constituent councils for provision of corporate services. We are in the process of finalising across those costs. So that's why the position is provisional at the moment in case there's any final amendments to that position. So that provisional position is a surplus of 324,000. As you can see, capacity fund of 500,000 in 24-25, and we have spent earnings. So the first recommendation is to note that position. The second recommendation is around what we do with that surplus on the 24-25 revenue budget. In line with the Local Government Act, authorities are required to maintain a general reserve to manage the risk of unplanned expenditure beyond the level of funding available to the authority. And I'm recommending that that surplus is transferred into a general reserve for that purpose. And based on the current size and activity of the organisation, I regard that as adequate at time for Hager's current level of operational costs, and we will review that position when we set a budget and financial plan for the forthcoming financial year. There was no capital expenditure or funding accrued in 2024-25. Moving to, first of all, the revenue budget for 2025-26. So the current year is based on information available at the end of July with a forecast outturn position. So the original revenue budget was always a highly provisional position based on the limited financial information available at that time. And we've developed that significantly since, so it has required some amendments, principally for two issues of 5.3. One is the supplementary budget for government grants announced since the original budget was set. So where those have fallen within my delegated limits, I've added those into the budget. And also we've needed to make amendments to the budget to align the budget with the operational costs, and that's required a reduction to the investment fund budget of 863,000 to cover those operational costs as they have developed, alongside, of course, the mayoral election cost, which was a significant proportion of the capacity fund at 1.352 million against a £2 million capacity fund. So it is forecast essentially that what the position is showing is a balanced budget at this point in time, because there will be enough money to cover our costs. And I'm assuming at this point in time that the investment funding that we have, it will either be fully spent by the end of the year or otherwise carried forward for deployment in the next financial year, essentially. So there may well be a surplus on that as we move through the year and the investment plan to develop. But if there is, we want to carry it forward. So the forecast is a balanced budget on that basis. There is a recommendation at 5.8 to 5.10. So recommendation 3, I should say, is to note the forecast. Recommendation 4 is concerning the mayoral renewables fund. So at a previous meeting on 28th of May, there was a report to the board on the mayoral renewables fund and grant funding expected in line with the proposals at that time of 1.6 million from the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. So there was authority to accept up to that level of funding. Projects have now been further developed and submitted to the department, and we're expecting a grant offer of 1.45 million in support of eligible project spend of 2.84 million for 2 projects that are set out at paragraph 5.9. I can now confirm that there is a final grant offer in place for the Hull and East Yorkshire solar top-up scheme of 700,000, and we are waiting the finalisation of the grant offer for the South Holiday Park solar expansion and battery addition scheme. So it's therefore recommended to the exec board that, subject to confirmation of the final grant offer, it's approved a supplementary revenue budget of 1.45 million to disperse that funding to the constituent councils upon fulfilment of the grant conditions. Moving on to the capital budget in section 6, I've noted there, the capital budgets that are in place for the authority. The first three, of those, capital, grants that are available, those, are effectively transfers to constituent councils, who are expected to deploy that funding by the end of the financial year. Currently, there's no plans in place to deploy the capital element of the investment fund. But those are there for development via the board's governance arrangement, the investment board, etc. There is a recommendation at 6.3 through to 6.5, where we have received a letter from the Department for Transport identifying 26.5 million of highways maintenance block funding payable to ADA. That replaces the separate payments which in previous years were paid to constituent councils, and that's funding for capital maintenance and renewal of assets including roads, footways, bridges, drainage and lighting. It is allocated based on a formula that takes account of road lengths, bridges, street lighting, etc., managed by each local authority. And it's identified that 4.482 million is payable to Hull City Council and 22.015 million is payable to East Riding and Yorkshire Council. It is therefore recommended that the board establishes a supplementary budget for distribution of funding to the constituent councils. So that covers all of the recommendations, and I will just note at section 7, treasury management, which is currently being undertaken by East Riding and Yorkshire Council's finance team on behalf of the combined authority. All of that activity is being carried out in accordance with policy, and the interest earned to date on balances is 136,000 only because of the timing of funding coming in that early stage of the year. There is an average interest rate of 4.4%, and we expect to overachieve the original investment income budget, and that's forecast to be 503,000 by the end of the financial year. Okay, that completes my updates, and let's take some questions.
Questions, Mike?
Thank you. So, first of all, I have to review the recommendations in the report. It's very detailed explanation of the report. Also, a lot of information, but the one point I just want to sort of emphasise is around the capital budget and the funding for transport schemes, and to reinforce the point there around the formula that's used, so that though it might look like a disparity between the amounts going to East Riding, it's very much based on the formula and would have been as is before the combined authority came into place as well. So this is not some sort of decision made by the combined authority to allocate in that manner. It's a case of using the formula as set out. Yes.
Yeah, I've just got a little cheeky one actually, Mr. Mayor. I kind of rail against the mayoral election costs. You've got to pay them, absolutely no problem. But it was government's idea to actually come up with mayors and combined authorities. It sticks in the craw a bit that the people in the area have got to pay for that. I think it should be paid by central government. And I do know some mayoral authorities have written to the government saying they think these costs should be paid by the government. But it's just my my little peek, shall we say, at these things.
So just for clarity, that capacity fund did come from the government to pay the
Right,
rent.
okay.
That's just the audit.
Yeah.
But
Does that continue?
just going off what you said, when I was in chats with the deputy and the rest of the mayors a couple of weeks ago, I did express my concerns that we should not be slicing anything from any pot to be able to pay for staffing to be able to run and deliver what we need to deliver. It should be a separate pot for staffing to be able to deliver these projects. So I did put that case forward to them, and I will continue to do that. And we need to start bringing in other revenue to cover that. So thank you.
That's really good news, I think.
I've been referencing. You'll help me out, second.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, thank you. Moving on to item 12, Hull and East Yorkshire's local Get Britain working plan, background and structure. I will now hand over to Andy to present the report.
Thank you very much. Morning, everybody. My name's Andrew Hewitt. I'm Mr. Seconded in from the East Riding of Yorkshire Council to be the strategic lead for health and employment for the combined authority for a year. You'll see the report that I've prepared that you've seen before, just with regards to the local deputy working plan, which is a requirement which DWP put to combined authorities to produce a document outlining how they will work towards the government's ambition of a thriving labour market, with the opportunity for people to gain good work and stay in good work, and achieve the ambition of an 80% employment rate within the area. So the report there seeks to outline some background around why DWP have brought this forward for the combined authorities to complete. What I've attempted to do is outline some an approach in terms of how we complete this document and some timescales to be able to do that. So I'll just run you through quickly some of the most salient points there. So obviously within the timescales we've been allocated to do this, DWP announced this in April for top level local authorities or combined authorities. Obviously at that stage we weren't a combined authority alongside Lincolnshire and some other areas. That's caused us some issues in terms of the timescales, because the timescale that initially given for completion of this was the end of September. Obviously by the time the combined authority had been put in place and actually got some capacity to actually start working on this piece of work, and that puts quite a long way into the timescales for completing the piece of work. So we've had negotiations with DWP who are sympathetic to the situation that we find ourselves in. So instead of the end of September, they've given us the end of October and possibly into November to be able to complete this. So just for people to be aware of that. Obviously, what I've laid down in the paper is a three-pillar approach in terms of how we're going to do this. The first thing is around collecting the information, the data required to be able to inform where the key issues are. The second element is around understanding where the current delivery is across the patch and any issues with that. There is some issues in terms of funding for that for the next financial year, as much of it's funded by the local authorities through the UK SPF, which comes to an end with this financial year. So we just need to be mindful of that. And then the third pillar is a redesign of what is currently in place to be able to make sure that we are well aligned, not just with jobs and employment, but also with health as well, which is a key element within this document. Integration of health into the employment element as well. So that's the reason for the document. As you can see, we've got a set of pillars in which we're looking to work to deliver that. We will be preparing a draft in short order. So any comments that people have got on the structure, we'd be very grateful to see those today. And we'll be looking to come back to the next board with a draft of the document, final document to be considered. Up until this point, we've already undertaken a range of different consultation with a range of different groups. Obviously, we've engaged with DWP, with the local authorities, with the ICB itself. We attended the scrutiny committee last week, which was very useful in providing us with some comments to improve the structure. We went to the skills board last week as well to get their views on it. So we're already talking to a wide range of partners who'll be very keen in completing this document. People are being very generous with their time, their data and their kind of views on how this should be taken forward. And we look forward to completing this document. So any questions or comments, I'm quite happy to take.
Well, thank you, Andy. I just jump in real quickly before I hand it over to Mike and then Mr. Tucker. We have currently got meetings booked in with both councils next week, I believe, on the delivery of this project. But you know, we certainly, as a combined authority, want to work very closely with the local authorities on delivering this as well. But I will pass it over to Mike Ross.
Thank you. Yeah, so to support the aims and ambitions of this, but obviously the delivery of it is a slightly different matter. You mentioned the UK SPF funding comes to an end. Obviously, there's concern. I know from the sector's been driven that around what the implications of that is, and which again is a national issue, not just a local issue. Similarly with network, again, same organisations effectively would be moving into this now. I think having met with a number of the organisations recently, they have concerns around this issue. So I think there is definitely work to be done with that group of. You noted that some conversation take place. I noticed there wasn't any conversation yet with the providers, so I think it'd be good to get that up and running soon, to get those conversations going there. So I'm concerned that the capacity might not be there to deliver the worthy outcomes of this project if they are not able to deliver the schemes themselves.
I think that's it's a point that will come to know, obviously as part of that kind of understanding what the current landscape of delivery is for us to make government aware that there is some issues in this area. In terms of our discussion with DWP around this document, I think what they've suggested, and this is what's happening with other combined authorities who are in similar position to us, is that we produce a first edition of the document which will come to the board at the next time, which will concentrate on those issues and the dates that we've got at the moment, and some outline priorities in terms of where we're going to work with partners to take that forward, with a view to a second edition which comes out earlier in the next financial year once we've completed the local growth plan, once we've completed the skills and work plan as well. But during that period, it will also allow us to undertake some roundtables with people who are actually delivering, and actually people who have got key understanding of what might work in this area. So that kind of redesign bit isn't going to be possible to be done in the next month, but what we will be looking to do, we've already got some dates in the diary for round tables to actually get people who are delivering and who have got key stakes in this arena to come together and start having a conversation about what we can do, because obviously what we're able to do as a combined authority with Mayor Investment is take a longer term view maybe than possibly been so in the past in terms of different government initiatives in this space, and actually understanding which ones of those have worked well in the past, and this is something that we can do to take those forward, or is there some new ideas which are emerging which we can kind of trial in this area. So we're very keen to do that, but we're aware with the tight timescales we've been given from DWP, it's difficult to do that within the next month, but it's definitely something that we're looking to do with a view to the second edition, which will come out early in the next financial year.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Tucker and then Jane.
Okay, I'm really short. I'd just like to say thank you, Andy, for the report. I think it's really good. But I'd also, for the minutes, I'd like to acknowledge and recognise the recommendations of scrutiny. I think that's really valuable input, and I think that should be fed back from the board to scrutiny, that we recognise the recommendations. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
So, you know, this is a topic that's really close to my heart. And I know you're coming to the ICB in October as well, aren't you? The bit that I would add in, which is a part answer to Councillor Ross, I think, in that we've already got in the ICB anyway, people that have been working on this agenda for quite some time through different banners, if you like, not necessarily obviously Get Britain Working, and that capacity is there. So we're not starting from scratch, I think, I would say, and it does allow us to help and support it to move.
My concern is around Kirsty might be there at the moment, but if they don't feel it's going to work, then whether it exists.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bro.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Move on to item 13, enhanced bus partnership agreement. I will hand over to Will to present the report. Thank you, Will.
Thank you. And just by way of introduction, my name is Will Gunnett and I'm supporting the Mayor and our portfolio lead, Councillor Tucker, in transport. So this paper that we bring to board, timing wise, is almost perfect. We've got an evolving regulatory framework within the bus industry and government policy. We've got a new portfolio lead in Councillor Tucker, which will help us bring some energy and pace to the work that we need to do. As you can see, we've got members of the public who are asking us pretty precise questions on what we can do within the bus area. This consultation is part of the regulatory framework that we need to match to government policy. So it's a really, really important piece of work that allows us to move forward with improvements we can make. So overall, this report is seeking approval from the Hull and East Yorkshire Combined Authority Board to begin that formal exploration, to begin to talk to stakeholders about how we can build on the good work that's been done within the local authorities. Members may be aware that currently Hull and East Riding operate two separate enhanced bus partnerships, and they've definitely delivered local improvement, but perhaps are limited by the governance that is employed there, and indeed their overall coordination. This gives us the opportunity to bring that together and work with our local authority partners to deliver a better outcome for the whole of the region. Indeed, we believe this would create a single statutory framework which would support consistent service standards, integrated ticketing, as the Mayor has already mentioned, more joint infrastructure planning as we go across the regions, and stronger oversight, particularly in operators and how we work better with our wider stakeholders. as I said at the beginning, it fits the regulatory framework that government have put in place. And indeed, as a mayoral authority, I think it better places us to support some of the other mayoral priorities. We've just heard from colleagues around get Britain work, and that's a really, really good example. I think transport can work harder in order that we get people back to work. The initial resource requirements for this particular consultation are very modest, and we'll use the resource that is within the combined authority, but also our officer partners within the local authorities. But it may well pick up long-term financial commitments that may emerge as we do that consultation. It also positions, I think, the MCA really, really strongly, as I've said, for future government funding. And indeed helps address key challenges that I think we've seen within the region and is recognised by the local authorities. And that's in areas where we've got declining bus patronage, particularly with groups that perhaps have protected characteristics, poor rural connectivity, which I think we've already covered today, air quality issues within some of our region, and indeed limited control of operators overall. So as a result, we've aligned this proposal very much with the forthcoming buses bill number 2, which is currently going through Parliament. We're expecting it just before recess. It is likely now to come through into the autumn, and there is also evolving wider national transport policy. We may hear a little bit of that within the forthcoming Labour what's it called? Manifesto. That's it. And if approved, we'll actually begin the consultation with operators, stakeholders and the public this autumn. We've done some of that pre-approval already with operators just to make sure this lands in the right way, the seen as supported. And indeed, we will make sure that we go through a very, very clear legal and financial review with the aim of bringing a more detailed proposal back to this board in early 2026. So with that very brief introduction, what I'd like to do is obviously take questions, but also move the board formally supports this exploration of the combined enhanced bus partnership.
Well, Mr. Councillor Tippett.
Thank you very much, Matt. I mean, this is vital work. It's interesting, in East Riding Council recently, we've undertaken a lot of public consultations and we've gone out to see what's important to our residents, and highways, transport are right up there on the agenda. We see that today by the questions back from elected to yourself. So, you know, I'm very supportive of this. I think it's well and it's doing. The only bit I think that needs adding in here is it talks about the stakeholders, parish councils. I think the PCC has a pivotal role in this, and I'd like to see the PCC at the table when we're doing the consultation, particularly because you spoke earlier about safety of young girls, and so I'd like that to be added. But very supportive, very happy to move this as portfolio holder.
Well,
Thank you. It's a really good point.
we'll go to Mike and then
Just so obviously, as a board references, there are existing partnerships already for Ireland East Riding. So I think you need to see whatever comes out of this builds on that work rather than starts from scratch. You know, there's a good relationship with the bus companies, and I hope that is reflected in the conversation as well as this goes forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. My question's about money. Always about money. So you said there may be some more money needed for consultation. What does that actually mean, and what are you talking about? Because I'm really, when it comes to money and resources that we're spending as a combined authority on consultants, I'd like more information on that, please.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question. I think I probably misspoke. I think what this consultation will do is develop more opportunity where we see that we need to drive different resources and move the current resources around. We're not expecting that we'll spend more money, and I think the fact that we've got a small amount of NED, I would hope that we don't spend that amount of money, but it may be we have to spend it to really get into some of those people with protecting characteristics. It's that kind of area that we would look at. So, for example, my colleague Anita came to me just with a specific issue that they'd picked up right over in the Holtham S area. So that might be something where we need a bit of support from the parish council just to try and understand actually how can transport help that particular area. So it's not necessarily in terms of consultants, it's just we will, as we create a policy document, we will need support to do that.
because that's where the funding is then driven from government through that regulatory framework.
That's all.
So I maybe misspoke.
Yeah, I misunderstood you because you said we may need some more resource, financial, and I thought, well, why not? Let's just, I'm always on the money round.
Yeah, no, agree. I mean, I
I don't
think
like
it was,
spending it.
it was just trying to, I think what it will give itself a chance is understand what the long-term financial commitments actually are really, so we can draw them beyond the year, which is generally our government funded us up until now.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is helpful there, maybe Mr. Dunn found it helpful. 9.1 on page 5 of 8 of the report. That talks about the funding the existing transport program budget is estimated at 15 to 18k. Yeah. That's all for external, isn't it?
And potentially external technical consultancy. So I'm sorry to be a bit pedantic, but I have to pick up on that because I'd like to know, it says 15 to 18, which is great, but potentially external technical consultancy, that's after we've got a dedicated officer, time, legal support and potentially external. So actually you're saying 15 to 18, but it could be more than that, couldn't it?
So I think we've identified that there's amount of money that needs to be spent.
Yeah.
What this report will pull together is actually what needs to be spent over a longer term period. At the minute, funding for buses tends to be on a year by year basis. We're expecting government in December to give us what's called BSIP funding, bus service improvement funding over 3 years. In order to get that funding, we will need to put documentation through to government. Now, as we build the transport team, we'll be able to do more and more of that in-house. But at the moment, there is just me.
Right, okay, thank you. Sorry.
And just a quick reminder that the authority has received £634,000 this year to establish its essentially for the resources to us, which is the local transport framework and all the work connected with that. So essentially, we have been given grant to pay for staffing and any additional advice we need to talk to.
That's absolutely fine, but you know, Ms. Hamilton, you're my 151%, you know what I'm like, so it's absolutely cool.
No, it's a good, very good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
great question. We have to be very careful when spending public money. I agree. Jason.
Thanks, Mayor. Just one point on the consultation. Can I suggest we also invite the voice of business, specifically around, I'm thinking about the new investment sites. I remember back to Siemens days where we had to consult ourselves with the local bus services trying to get a site to Alexandra Dock. And I'm imagining some of the new Freeport sites aren't accessible by bus routes. Obviously, we want to make it as easy as possible to get to those sites.
Yeah, again, where we can, we'll try and keep those costs down as well. And the round tables that we've got planned for some of the growth work, we'll probably be able to dovetail some of that consultation as well.
Well, thank you.
I'm happy.
Well, everyone else happy? Well, awesome, thank you. Thanks. We'll move on to the last item of the day. East Yorkshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy. I will hand over to Claire and John to present the report, please.
Thank you. I'm John from Britain. I'm the Single Environment Manager at the Australian Council. And for the last 2 and a bit years, I've been leading the development of the whole East Yorkshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy. So I won't go through all of the content of the paper, but a quick bit of background. Local nature recovery strategies are a requirement from the Environment Act. So there are 48 being produced nationally across England. Our geography aligns with the Combined Authorities geography, and within the process and the setup, there are different tiers of responsibility. So East Riding was designated as the responsible authority, and we had Hull City Council as a nominated supporting authority. In locations where there were combined authorities in existence at the time, they were automatically made the responsible authority. Obviously, that wasn't the case for us. And in June of this year, we had it confirmed that the combined authority was being given supporting authority status, if you like. So the role of the supporting authority basically gives powers to raise what are called publication advisory notices, which are essentially objections to the publication in the run up through that process. So we are now at the point where we will be issuing our intention to publish next week to supporting authorities, so that's Hull City Council, HACAT and also Natural England. And we will also do that to our neighbouring authorities as a courtesy, so South Yorkshire, Greater Lincolnshire and North Yorkshire. So that process essentially provides a 28-day window for one of these publication advisory notices to be raised should supporting authorities see fit. Alternatively, the other recommendation of the report is should the combined authority feel comfortable supporting the publication of the product as it currently stands, we could potentially expedite that publication process. So the date that we will be issuing is going to be the 16th of February 2026 for publication. And we've gone to that based upon other approval timelines for ourselves within East Riding Council. To get to this point, the draft nature recovery strategy has already been subject to a previous 28-day consultation period with supporting authorities as they existed back in January. And that was to gain permission to go to statutory consultation, which was completed in June. We were subjected to a panel with DEFRA family and other statutory agencies, as well as other responsible authority areas to scrutinise the NRS. And they were happy that it met the criteria to proceed to publication with a few minor amendments, which we addressed throughout that process. So we currently have the draft LNRS and we feel that it is in a position to publish. I'm happy to take any questions on content process. I appreciate some of this might be new to some on the table, but not new to others.
Any questions?
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I'm hugely supportive of this nature strategy because and many counts really. One is that we're very fortunate in the East Riding and Hull as well to be blessed by having a wealth of nature around us. And we recently did a visit, Mr. Menzies and myself. We went to what we call the Welp realignment, which we've had a great area of offsetting done to offset the harm done on the south bank. Have offset it for nature on the north bank. And we know that we have nature tourism, which brings in massive revenue to the area. People come visitors, but overriding for me, mental health is the biggest drain, or not biggest drain, that's the wrong word, the biggest expense in the NHS currently. And what we know is connecting with nature has one of the biggest impacts on improving people's mental health. Just getting out, able to walk through trees, local parks, and seeing nature. So I welcome this strategy. I'm very supportive of it, and I think the board should adopt it. Thank you.
Councillor Tucker. If I could add on that topic, the LNRS at its core is a nature-based product because that's what it has to be, but it is incorporated a number of ancillary areas, public health, wellbeing, access, nature, fitness, etc. is one of those. I think one of the areas that we've dug into throughout the development process is not just the sort of obvious in terms of having natural space benefits people, but also the other way of looking at it where we have things like scaffling or other natural flood management schemes and the impact that they have on anxiety, stress within the community and how that side of things can be alleviated in nature recovery as well.
Brilliant. Service for my sport. Good. Well, thank you all. That concludes today's meeting.